Oh, yeah. Oh, look at this. Look at this. I've done it. I've done it. I have got the ultimate solution for winters and field walkers and cabin fever in Ohio. Guess who? It's me again. You know what? There are so many ways to deal with cabin fever, and we all laugh about it. But if you're in the northern part of wherever, believe me, these winters get long. This was a tough one for us. And how many of us have thought about our favorite site that's just sitting underneath the snow? Anyway, you can attack it with a snowblower, or here's another way that you can deal with cabin fever. You can take a quandary or a conundrum, or just something that's crazy frustrating, and kick it around a little bit. You can do it with friends, or you can just do it with yourself. And I last week I began to drag some things out and look at it. I had a lot of loose ends, and I thought, you know what, I want to share with you. One, because I love it. I love being with you. I love your feedback. Thank you for that. And I think this kind of stuff uh, gives rise to further thinking, deeper thinking, and it takes us back to our fields. And have I found that? What do I think about that? So what we're going to do is just look at a few things, a couple of my favorite things, Fishspears for one. But we're going to talk about just some transitions from time periods and how things evolve. So let me start off by reading a quote from Bob Converse in his book on Ohio flint types. Okay, short. Bob says, although it is assumed that they were used for drilling holes in such materials as wood or stone or antler, it is rare to see a drill with worn edges, which would result if they had been thus employed. Well, then why are we calling them drills? Okay, so what I did, and let's just swing over here real quick. Let's go all the way down here. I have some frames that I brought in are just drills. Some are whole, but you and I all know that we don't find many whole ones. Most of what we find are all broken. And what I did is I took a look at my drills, and I was kicking around, and you know what? He's right. Very few, if any. I didn't find any out of all these that showed any twisting at all. As a matter of fact, when I started to look at the breakage is snap. It's not a torque from a twist break, it's a snap break. So, why am I saying this and why am I doing this with you? Because I want your feedback. I want all of us to sit at a table together and think about these things. Maybe by labeling something and calling it a drill, our mind stops thinking and we don't go any further down the road. Or when we look at that tool, that's the only thing we're thinking about is, well, what were they drilling? And I think it's time we back up and quit using that old red wagon again. And that red wagon, you'll think about it all day. We don't want to do that. So with the drill, let's just look at it and consider it a tool. And maybe we need to come up with a whole new name. I don't know. Give you another example of how a red wagon term can get us all goofed up. Let's run down to this end of the table. Come on down. I think you all know what these are. Uh, I do a lot of beaver trapping in the southern states, and I find these in the fields down there as well as I do in the Ohio, especially the Kentucky area. And these are what we call, guess what? Back in the 1950s, 1960s, maybe even the early 70s, or if you if you don't do a whole lot of reading, you're still going to call them blunts or stunners. And they got their name, and I'll pick one up here and I'll show it to you because we have like a point and it's got a blunt end. Stunners or scrapers. Now, a blunt or a stunner would indicate that it's something that's either thrown or shot through the air. There's This is so not aerodynamic. There's no way, even if you had a giant arrow, it's not going to go through the air. So it's time that we kind of back up and say, what have we got? Well, what we have here is a hafted scraper. And I've already tried these on muskrats, and they scrape beautifully. They just take the muscle and the fat right off the muskrat. So We're looking at hafted scrapers. But again, the red wagon, a long time ago, somebody said, well, these look like blunts or they look like stunners, but they are not. And it was an incorrect red wagon that literally shut down the thinking on those for many, many, many years. One of the other things I collect, hafted scrapers and Fishspears, and averaging maybe 8,000 of these. You know, eventually you're going to get an idea what these things were used for. But what I discovered isn't what they were used for, it was the multiplicity of uses. That these weren't just a tool, they were multiple tools. And I think that all of you now, we're far enough in our journey in archaeology and field archaeology that we realize that there are a lot of options. A lot of things are used for other things. And so I'm going to drag you all the way back here now. Come on back. We're looking at a couple time periods right here. The late woodland in northern Ohio, or Fort Ancient if we were down toward the Ohio River, but ours is characteristic without the serrations. Once in a while you get some with a little bit of serrations, but you know them and I know them as a triangle. And maybe our brain stops right there. But the thing is, if you look at these, you can see that sometimes they're a little bit concave, a lot concave, okay? A little bit concave, a little bit concave. And I'm going to go over to a couple fields, different fields. We have a drill, but this drill was originally a triangle, and they just resharpened it. Let's flip down here. This field is a late woodland site with a little bit of intrusive mound material, but look how the sharpening took a triangle, and made a drill out of it. Took a triangle, resharpen, whoops, and you got a drill out of it. So things are changing. Remember these in our last video, and you find them out in the fields. And guess what? They're probably somebody out there plowing with his horse and plowed on his clay pipe and snapped it off to light it up. So we find these. But again, when I look at this is a good reminder of, here's another drill or triangle that's on its way to becoming a drill. So these things change. They change as they're needed. They can be purposely changed or incidentally changed, just with a lot of use, reuse, resharpen, use, reuse, resharpen, and things happen. So if I can get you off your chair and get you moving a little bit with your mind and thinking, and that's going to help. So we're going to avoid the mackerel. We're going to avoid the red wagon, and we're going to just take a look at these things and see what we've got. So let's come back to one of my favorites. And one of my favorites that I've been collecting for a little while is what we call, up here in Ohio, we call it guess what? A fish spear. We call it a blue wagon. This thing has nothing to do with spearing fish, but somebody came up with it a long time ago, and we're still calling the same cotton picking flint piece a fish spear. Now, why do we do this? I don't know. But does this look like a fish spear to you? Do these look like fish spears? Do they? Do these look like fish spears? Do these look like fish spears? Let's go down here. Do these look like fish spears? And if we go all the way down to the bottom, we find quote unquote fish spears that were probably broke. And guess what they did? They turned them into hafted scrapers. Okay? Broke, reworked, hafted scrapers. So it's a conundrum. What do we do? Well, how do we name these things? And how do we control our brain so it doesn't run down a rabbit trail and get us in trouble? I think that accountability in your friendships and people with field walkers and keeping our minds on a straight plane is helpful. So I brought in drills with fish spears. And if we look at kind of the history of these things, the Fishspears kind of appeared in the Ohio closet mid-archaic. But before that time and after that time, there were just drills. And drills. Here we go again. And during that time period, there were drills. But there evolved a tool that is so similar to a drill. Let me grab a couple and just show you. Look at this. Drill, fish scraper. And we can flip, go back over here, put him where he belongs. But in here, any one of these could quote unquote be a fish spear. So now we have to ask ourselves, we know that during the Middle Archaic period, the wide diversity of tool types is crazy. On a really rich archaic site in Ohio, whether you're in southern or northern Ohio, east, west, whatever, on a rich archaic site, there's not only a diversity of tool types from both uniface to biface, but there are a lot of them. And I think we're at a point now where most mammalogists, most anthropologists, archaeologists are starting to polarize over here, saying that may have been the richest fauna or animal time period in the scale of our prehistoric past in Ohio. And so if we think about that, and what were they doing with the tools? How were they processing these animals? What kind of a lifestyle did they have? How were they building their lodges? Were they more sedentary or were they fairly mobile? We know that our last prehistoric people, right up to when we had Roger on a little bit a while ago, our late woodland, they were sedentary. They just didn't move a whole lot. But again, backing up, we find that people were a little bit more on the move. Backing up, getting to early archaic, more on the move, and getting down into our Paleo time period. And these people were truly explorers. They had this incredible Willy Wonka Arrowhead factory, fauna, flora just down the road. And everywhere they went, it got better and crazier and more wonderful. So they moved. And so we try to put all this together and we try to make some sense out of it. So I brought in a wide, diverse collection of what we call the fish spear in Ohio. And I think it's pretty fair to say that any really good site that you have on Ohio is going to yield a drill. You'll find drills. They were all cultures, and they were all over Ohio. And I know that you're going to love my little golf balls here and there. And I have my little rulers because I want you to get an idea that these things went from very big to very small. And so looking again at the drill, universal, all cultures right up to the late woodland culture, even the Paleo culture. But the fish spears, boy, they appeared middle archaic and they just dwindled off after that and they just weren't even there before. What happened? What technology? What was going on? We looked at some drills and I said, and Bob and I read, he said, we don't think these things were actually used as drills. So when I looked at my fish spears, my little ones, my narrow ones, my long ones, like long and narrow like this one, there's no way this was used as a drill. These have, I call them scallops in, on the sides or serrated points. And this is a great one. It's just been retouched and it's ready for duty, but it never got called to duty. It got left behind for whatever reason. But it resembles a drill. But the point is, we know that drills weren't necessarily used as drills. These look like drills. So maybe we need to study the technology of this type with the drill type and see if they were doing similar jobs during different time period. These are things that you can do, I can do. When you get your field walker friends together, you can bring, guys, everybody bring your fish spears in, or everybody bring your drills that you found across your lifetime. Let's take a look at them. Or fish spears and drills. What do we see in common with these things? What I see in common is the way they're created. One of Bob's characteristics on a drill is if we cut it in half and look at a cross section, it's like diamond shaped. But the truth is, when we look at some of our fish spears, when they're really getting down and being used, getting toward the end, cut them in half and they're semi diamond shaped. So all this is a preponderance. I hope that you'll get just excited. You'll feel comfortable knowing that it's okay not to know the answers. And sometimes to get to an answer, it takes a lot of yeses, a lot of nos, a lot of guessing, a lot of opinions, a lot of cross-referencing, a lot of friends, trusted field walkers. And then maybe you can go somewhere with some of this. So I wanted to kind of show you the evolution. Let me get a really big fish spear. Some people are just shocked when they when they look at these. They never imagine that a fish spear could be this big, or this could actually end up going this direction. But again, if you think of it as, it starts out as a really heavy duty knife of sorts, and as it gets used and it narrows down, and you're getting this perhaps of a form. They change. And then I'm going to reach down here and grab something. And then I'm going to stick this in the middle. Occasionally they break. They break. And which is, why are they breaking? What are they doing? What is the technology that snaps them like that? Well, they've reworked some of them into hafted scrapers. The hafted scrapers were used to work on hides, process hides of animals. Could these be connected somehow with working with skins and hides? These are great questions. And I just want to say to you, honestly, if you can get it through your head that you don't need to know, that you just need to free yourself up and give yourself permission, to look at and consider these different things. So we've looked at the fish spear and the drill. Quandary is a relationship. These appeared in the middle of the time sequence of all drills, all cultures, and then in the middle, suddenly this thing pops up. And we find in the presence of these fish spears. And by the way, these are actually common in Ohio. And so as you listen and watch today, think about your own collection. And I'm willing to bet that you've got some little ones. You may not have these big guys that were picked up back in the 1930s and 1940s, but you may have some of the smaller ones. And I know you're going to get some of these hafted scraper type fish spears. Oh man, I hate using that word fish spear, but we just don't have another name right now. And you run into look at this one. This is a fish spear, but instead of being long, they just shortened him up this direction. So a fish spear characterizes or is characterized by, for the most part, they're dark flint. They're dark Coshocton flint in Ohio. Even when you get down near the river, you're going to run into the Coshocton flint, but you also start running into a multiplicity of different kinds of cherts. So this thing, the only flint that's missing would be hornstone, would be maybe Carter Cave. Flint Ridge is not common, but the rest, the heart and soul is for the most part, and you can see it, is Coshocton flint. So there you go. There's the first thing I want to toss out. This is good winter stuff. And if of course, I've been tempted to get a snowblower. I have been tempted. But inside where it's warm and looking at this stuff with friends, we can revisit this, and maybe we won't solve the puzzle, but we'll get a deeper insight. So we looked at some names that got us off track. We looked at a hafted scraper that had been called a blunt forever, and it really slowed down the thinking process. It got us off track. But now when we think in terms of a scraper, a hafted scraper, we can visualize a tool. And then when you look at it, listen to guys that have trapped, tell you that hey, it works for muskrats, and actually it works on a mink hide. They've got a pretty tough hide. Uh, then it kind of sets you free a little bit. And then we looked back here and we talked about the late woodland period in Ohio and my area of Ohio, which would be the northern half, which again are the late woodland with pretty much without the serrations or the scallops on the sides. And then the people that preceded the triangle were what we call the intrusive mound. And there's probably 2, 3, or 4 different kinds of points that fall into the intrusive mound category. And if you look, you're going to see differences. You're going to see some differences. Jack's Reef, sometimes this is called. But again, these things drifted and ended up becoming triangles. So what a great way to spend your winter. And I know that we're getting closer to spring back here, and but I just wanted to share some of my wild, crazy, untamed thinking with you, and hopefully get you out of the box. So I want to mention one last thing in closing. Recently, we brought a man to speak at our chapter, and his name is Joe Gingrich. Joe Gingrich. He's from Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. Good speaker, had a great program, but he's working on a really important project right now. I'm going to talk, but I'm going to hold the card this way because it's got 2 phone numbers. It has his cell phone and it has his work or his office phone. Joe Gingrich. Some of you may be looking for a good speaker to come to your club or your chapter. He's good. But he's tackled a really challenging, excellent issue, and that is surveying the Ohio fluted point. Now, there were some early ones way years and years and years ago, and I think the first ones came up with around 300 or 350 fluted points that were documented in Ohio, and now I know we're over 3,000. But he's able to track really great stuff. And one of the maps that he showed us was a line, kind of a give and take line that followed one of the glacial lines across Ohio. And just looking for patterns. Were these people moving the front of these glaciers? I don't know. But he needs help. And if you've got some fluted points or you have some paleo material, give him a buzz. He'd love to talk with you. But he is especially interested in paleo points. And I was interested as well. I said, what about high-low? What about some of these other early, late paleo? He said, all of them. So there he is. Here's Joe, his card, good speaker. And I certainly don't mind promoting people that love archaeology and appreciate all of we field walkers. So goodbye, Joe. So thanks once again for hanging out with me on this wintry day. And honestly, I've already got an idea what I'm going to do with you next. I'm thinking about slate and how many of you are missing the broken slate. So for now, thanks for hanging out with me. And we'll see you soon.